So I really appreciate that question about divisions, because I think it's one of the biggest challenges for state associations around the country is the structuring and restructuring of divisions. So as you know, we have sport committees that are charged with tournament implementation. So everything from classification and division placement to the details of how programs and tournaments are run. And on those committees are ADs, coaches, and administrators from our schools. The tournament committees, the sport committees, can choose to implement success factors, can choose to have a set number of divisions, can choose to decide how those divisions are populated, like ice hockey, for example, which populates divisions based on skill, which is unique to ice hockey. Boys basketball, now we have a better system, I think, the tournament generator, which is a numeric quantitative division placement for boys basketball based on all sorts of things that the committee came up with and was vetted with athletic directors, coaches, and schools. So the vetting process is a really important part of that. Success factor now in football to accommodate schools of choice. So tournament committees choose to implement things like that. It's not us here in the office. And those things that they choose are vetted by the membership and ADs and coaches. I think we've done a pretty good job. I think the sports that have needed to do something when they felt an inequity have tried. And while I don't think there's a pure and simple equal playing field out there, we're doing our best to try to arrive at that within each individual sport. I think you're going to see some future changes in some sports, that will, now that they're watching one another, the committees kind of watch to see how something flies, and they think, oh, wow, that's a good idea for us. Let's try it. And we support them if they choose to do that. In some states, in fact, they schedule based on sort of strength of program. You'll see them traveling greater distances to develop and implement a schedule of competition that's, fairly uniform in terms of competitive challenge. What we're starting to see in Connecticut that the leagues are choosing to do now on their own, which I think is pretty genius, is pick a couple games out of their league where they choose to compete against a team of like strength. And I think that's fantastic. And we may see other sports start to do that. In a state like Connecticut, you can do that because geographically we're kind of a postage stamp compared to like a Texas or something like that. So I hope we see, within the sports that you can do that. Like in some of the divisions, they're just so big that they've had to create subdivisions within the leagues, But when you can do that, I think it's a great strategy to try to build a schedule where you have more like competition than you do real disparity. So
Is that what's the right system? Is there one?
oh boy, that's a good question. I think right now, because we have leagues that operate with strength, they govern themselves very well. We have good commissioners, we have good ADs. In a lot of the leagues, the principals are involved as well in a real in-depth way. In some leagues, not so much. But I think because the leagues operate very strongly right now, they govern themselves pretty well. They don't need us to do it. I think if we start to see the breakdown in league integrity, where there's a lot of struggles and like teams are bowing out at the last minute and they ruin some other school's schedule or the league schedule's disrupted, I think then the CIC may need to get involved. But right now they're doing a really good job on their own. We've gotten involved a lot with the onset of the co-ops and helping schools kind of develop schedules with co-op programs and such. But we still try to let leagues operate on their own so they can have championships and have their own banquets and things that really bring another level of recognition for kids. And, that's kind of neat for them to still have those kinds of experiences.
Or is CIC happy with the way these are set up, and You know, or is there room to make improvements in the relationship between those different types of schools that have different goals and different, you know, maybe they're not as big into athletics as others.
Sure. And you know, that's a complicated issue too, and it's one we absolutely want to continue to always look at. Right now, our member schools have set that number for what defines a school of choice. You know, but you make a great point. A lot of our schools of choice are complete choice, where their student body really comes from other towns, great majority. On some of our schools of choice are choice by purpose of design, like our technical high schools. It's a trade situation, and that's really why the kids are going there. You know, right now the membership feels that the number that they've arrived at is fair. And they feel that, you know, if you look like a sport of basketball, it takes one big player to come in, no matter why they're at that school, to make a real impact on the court. You know, one player on the football field, maybe not so much, depending on who the player is. But, you know, when in high school, we're still at a level of play where one or two kids can make a huge difference. Right now, the membership feels like we're in a good place with what defines choice. We do absolutely agree, though, that most of our schools of choice have kids that are there for a different reason than to play sport. So.